Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Nasa Strat. Today on the channel, we'll be learning how to make a six-piece skirt. If it's something you're interested in, give this video a thumbs up, bring out your fabrics, and let's get right into this. So we'll be making use of our rule, tape, chalk and scissors, zipper for this project. I also have 3 yards of Ankara fabric and a matching yardage of lining. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to fold my fabric into two. So I'm actually folding this by the width. I folded it into two. Okay, then I'll go ahead and ensure this is folded equally at the edges, and after that I'll go ahead and fold again into four. All right, so it simply means one edge of this will be folded into four, while the part that will be serving as the back will be folded into two like I've done. Okay, so you can see what I've folded. All right, so what I'll do next is to measure what the width I have for the back. Now I want the flare of my skirts to be equal all round, so I'm using 9 inches for my flare. So if you want to use more for yours, say 10, 11, 12, or no matter how full you want to use it, okay? You want your flare to be full. It means you'll be using a fuller yardage of fabric. You'll be needing 4 yards of fabric, 3.5, depending on what you want. Okay, so I just went ahead to rule a line there to serve as my starting point, and from that point I'll be placing 1.5 inch outwards, which will be for my band. Okay, and I'll go ahead and mark the hip point I'm working with for this project, which is 8 inches. And still placing my 1.5 inches outwards, I'll go in and mark my knee length. Okay, so whatever your waist to knee is, go up by 2 inches and mark it down. So you're not using your actual knee length for the skirt. This is so that you can have access to walk freely. That's because this skirt is not it doesn't have any form of slits. Okay, so you need a free way to move your legs, and I went ahead to mark the full length of the skirt, ensuring to add 1 inch for hemming allowance. So I'm just ruling my lines across this and extending it to the back part. Okay, all right, so we have our hip line, we have our knee line, and we have the full length of this. Okay, we have vertical measurements all placed down. So the next we want to do is to mark out the centerpiece of our skirt. To do that, we're going to be using the bust pan. Now, the bust pan is the nipple to nipple measurement. So for this project, I'm using 7 inches. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. I added half of an inch to that, and I marked 4 inch at the waist point, at the hip point. Then when I got to the knee area, I minused that half inch I added, and I marked 3.5 inches instead. So like I said, nipple to nipple measurement I'm using for this is 7. So 7 divided by 2, I have 3.5 plus half of an inch. I have 4 inches at the waist, 4 inches at the hip, and then 3.5 inches at the knee. Okay. So for the full length area of this, I'm going to also mark 9 inches. Remember I said I wanted the flare all round to be 9 inches. So I marked 9 inches for this. Now note that this is folded into two. That's the center piece is folded. It simply means 9 plus 9, we're going to have 18 inches by the time we open that up. All right. So if you're using 10 inches for yours, for your flare, for example, it means you're having 20 at the end of the day. And I just went in with my rule to connect my points together. So this is how to simply get the centerpiece of your 6 pieces skirt. You just make use of your bust pan, that is the nipple to nipple measurement, to get the measurements there. So for the waist and the hip, it needs to be half of an inch larger than that of the knee. Okay, now going down to the zip allowance area or for the back, I marked 1.5 inches at the waist. Then at the hip area, I'll be using 2 inches for that because of the butt allowance. And at the knee, I will be using 1 inch. Okay. Now, the reason for the knee being smaller is so that by the time the skirt is worn on the waist, The knee gives it, when the knee has a little bit of fitting, it gives it that extra flay and it makes it more visible. I hope you understand that. Okay, that is why. So I used 1 inch for the waist, 2 inches, 1.5 inches at the waist, 2 inches at the knee, at the hip point, sorry, and then 1 inch at the knee. Okay, then I'll just connect this to meet the end of my skirt. Remember, I already folded this by 9 inches, so that is what I have already. No need to measure that out. So we have our center front, okay, and our center back. That's the center back area we have now is the zip area. So we have this part down, okay. We'll go in to curve the edges of this, right? So at the edge of the end, we'll be going up by 2 inches. I'll just make a mark here and then use my free hand to curve that edge so that I don't have any sharp edges right there. And I'll repeat the same thing for that of my back piece. Go up by 2 inches and then curve it with my free hand. Okay, after which I will just go in with my scissors to cut this out.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yeah, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be.
So I finished doing that. Okay, this is my center piece. This is what I mean. That's the center front, and the other piece, it's for the center back. Okay, so ensure to make a notch at your zip allowance for the back to indicate that point. So I'll just take off the back piece and then bring in the remaining piece from our folded fabric. Now remember, we folded this other end into four, so we have 4 pieces of this, and I'll go in and place my front piece on top of it like so. So just watch closely how I'm placing this. So I'm just trying to manage the fabric I have. Remember, I said I'm using 3 yards of fabric. That's because I'm not using a wider range of flare for this. But if you're using a wider range of flare, please ensure you use more yardage of fabric, 3.5 inches, 3.5 to 4 yards, 4.5, depending on how full you want it. Okay, so I just went on to replicate my lines. That's the waist, the hip, the knee point on the other piece. Okay, now to get our side piece, remember we only have the front, center front, and then the center back. Now we want to cut for both the center front and the center back. Okay, now to cut for this, we're going to divide the round waist by 4. So I'm working for with a round waist of 32 inches. Now divided by 4, I have 8 inches. Now what I'll do is to place 8 inches, ensuring to minus 4 inch. Okay, so you can see how I placed this down, and then I marked 2 inches for my inseam allowance. So you're going to minus what you took for the center piece, because if you open this up and place them together, they should give you your the half of your measurement on both sides, be the front or the back. So for the hip, I'll do the same thing. Divide the round hip by 4 and then minus 4 inches, mark it down and then add my inseam allowance. Now for the knee area, I'll do the same thing. Now I'm using the hip circumference minus 6 to get my knee circumference. So the knee circumference is the hip circumference is 41 inches minus 6 inches, I have 35. Now 35 divided by 4, I have 8.75 inches. So I'm going to minus 3.5 inches, which I took for the knee point to get my center front earlier. Mark what I have left and then add 2 inches of inseam allowance. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. Whatever you used for your center front, say you use 4.5, after taking your round measurement, that's your circumference measurement, minus that inches. Okay, use your tape rule, just place it, allowing 4 inches for mine, for example, to be outside before marking what you have left. All right. And then add your inseam allowance of 2 inches to 2.5 inches. Okay. Now this is a PC skirt. I actually use 2 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect it to the end. All right. So I measured this out earlier and I have 9 inches because remember that is the flayed how wild we want our flayed to be. So I just connected it down to the full length of this. We simply have our center front, sorry, our side front and our side back. Okay, so this is what we'll be joining to the center front and that of the center back in order to get our complete piece. And I just went in with my scissors to take it out. So watch closely how I am cutting this out so you're not confused while you're doing this. So remember to also curve the edges of your side pieces because they need to be curved. You don't need to have any sharp edges, all right? So I just went in with my scissors and then took out the parts I will not be needing for this. So after doing that, this is what we have. All right. So I'll just take off the center front so we get a proper look of what we have. So before doing that, I'll make a notch at the knee point area. Now the point I'm notching is where we'll be joining to the pieces area. Okay, that's where we'll be joining to our center front area and center back area. I'm going to show you that later on. So this is what we have 4 pieces of this, 2 for the front and the other 2 for the back. Okay, so this is what we'll go ahead to do now. If we open up the center front, okay, just like it is now, this is the center front. We finish cutting this. This is the center front. This is our center back. We'll go ahead and cut this out on our lining. So remember to cut 2 pieces for the center back, and then the center front should be folded while the side should be 4 pieces each. So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. And I ensure that my lining is 1 inch shorter than my main fabric. Remember I said I added 1 inch for my hemming allowance. So that is the center front. I repeated the same thing for my center back and then the side back. So while cutting the side front and the side back, ensure that you also do the same thing. Take off 1 inch for them. Follow the curves, that's the patterns you have. All right, now to stitch this down, what we're going to do is that so what we want to do next is to start stitching this down. Okay, so just take off the pins on this and then start aligning our pieces together to stitch. So I'm going to bring in my center fronts, which I have placed down. Okay, and then bring in the side fronts for this piece. Now remember the side fronts of the front and that of this, the sides for the front and the back are actually equal. Okay, they're the same thing. So you just pick 2 pieces of that and you place it together with the fronts like so. You can see how I'm matching this, and then go ahead and stitch this together on the left and the right side of the center piece. Okay, that's of the center front. Go ahead to stitch it together to have 3 pieces instead of 1. So for the back piece, okay, remember the back we have the zip at the centered back. Okay, so you're not going to join everything together like that. Okay, so you need to stitch it at the area where you don't have your notch for the zip. Okay, remember earlier I said you should make a notch for your zipper to be on the safe side. Okay, now I'm just notching my zip area again to understand that. Remember for the back we have a curve for that zip area, so you're not mistaken. Okay, so you bring the matching piece for that, place it on the other side, go ahead and stitch it down. All right, repeat the same thing for the other piece of the back and then for the lining. So you're stitching that of the lining of the front separately, that of the lining of the back separately. All right, so this is what it looks like after I finish. This is the front piece. I've joined them together. Ensure to iron this properly, and this is that of my back piece. Remember, I have two pieces for the back. So this is one of it. Okay, you can see where the zip notch is. And this is the other part of it. You can see how they are aligning properly. So you don't want to make any mistake. Okay. Now I want to turn this over with a lining. Remember I said to stitch the lining piece separately. So you stitch three parts of your lining separate just as you did for your main fabric. So you can see this is what I have. I'm going to place this right side to right side and go ahead and stitch it starting from the bottom. I'll stitch the bottom round. I'm going to stitch the sides, both sides of this, the left and the right side, leaving the top side open where I'm going to use to turn this out. Okay, then I'll repeat the same thing for my back piece also. I'll place the matching lining piece on top of it, ensuring it is placed right side to right side. Okay, then I'll go in and stitch the ends. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is the back piece after I finish. This is what it looks like. Okay, I've not gone ahead to iron this properly, and I just stitched on top of the waist area to keep both of them in place. And this is also the other piece of my back after I finished. This is the front piece. Okay, this is what it looks like. So ensure you iron this properly to give it a very neat look at the end of the day. Okay, so what we want to do is to join our zipper area together for the back. Now to do that, I'll be placing both pieces of my back right side to right side, ensuring I place this properly, that they are matching properly. Okay, then you need to ensure that you place them properly, match them well. They should be matching like they should. You don't want one piece of this longer than the other piece. It is important for your piece to be matching at the top and at the end. Okay, after which I'll bring in my front piece also. I'll fold this into two. Okay, so I'm folding it on the wrong side, as you can see. That's the lining part, and I'm placing this on top of it, ensuring that the side seams are matching, like the sides of my skirts, that of the back and the front, they are matching, and ensuring that the ends of this are matching. Now, what I'm simply doing is to take note of what I have left for my zip allowance. Now, this is important if while stitching you don't take note of the inches you're using to stitch it down to turn round. So I'm just giving this. So I'm just going through this to check. Remember, I used 1.5 inch at the waist, 2 inches at the hip area, and then 1 inch for the knee. So after checking that out, I had 1 inch at the waist, I had 1.5 inch at the hip, and then 1/2 inch at the knee. That simply means what I used for my stitching was 1/2 inch, because I exhausted 1/2 inch from that end. Okay, so it's important for you to take note of that. So I'm just making my mark at those various ends. So at the knee, I have 1/2 inch. At the hip, I have 1.5 inches. At the waist, I have I have 1 inch. So I just connected the marks together after making that point. Now what I'm going to do is to, while stitching from the knee area, you are not to stitch this all straight. Okay, so before then, for the zip, we're going to take note of where we're going to start stitching this from. Now while marking for your zip area, ensure to leave your band allowance. Okay, you don't want to be stranded, so ensure to leave your band allowance outwards. Then you go ahead and mark where you're going to stitch from. So I've marked that point. Okay, that is where my stitching will start from. It means the other part of it is where my zip is going to sit later on. Now for the other ends of this, while stitching, don't stitch this straight ahead. You can see how I'm taking this. So you're going to follow the curve of your flay and then take it inwards, just like I'm doing. So I'm just making this mark so that you're not confused while you're doing yours. So you're not to follow the knee area straight. You're going to lose the flay there. So just go ahead and stitch this down to that end. So this is what it looks like after I finish stitching this down. You can see how nice this looks. Now you can see how the hip area we have more fabric than that of the knee. That is simply because of the allowances we took earlier before cutting this. Okay, so this is what the front part of this looks like. Okay. So we want to join our sides together. All right. So before doing that, I'm going to bring in my skirt and just pin down where my zip is going to sit. Remember, I didn't stitch this earlier, so I've just used my pins to keep them together, keep them in place, ensuring that it is well positioned, right? Okay. Then what I'm going to do next is to place my fabric right side to the right side. So I'm placing the back piece right side facing up, and then placing the front piece right side facing the back piece. So I'm going to position these pieces together properly, ensuring they're well placed. You can go ahead to make use of your pins to pin it down. So what we're going to do is just take measurements. Remember, what we added for our intim allowance was 2 inches, but you cannot use 2 inches because we've gone ahead to turn this out with lining. So we've gone ahead to stitch on this. So the best thing to do is simply to measure the waist. You start from the waist area. You take the measurement you have around the waist, divide the circumference of your waist by 2, and then you mark what you have left. Okay, say for example, your waist circumference is 30 inches, and after checking the measurements, 30 divided by 2 is 15. So after checking the measurement you have around the waist, say you have 18 inches, that means you have 3 inches extra. So you go ahead and share that 3 inches to the both side, to the left and also to the right, meaning you're going to give 1.5 inches to one side and then to the other side. You repeat the same process for the hip area. Okay, you take the hip circumference, you divide it by 2, take the measurement you have around the hip area, and then give the excess, share the excess equal to the right and to the left. If you have 2 inches left, give 1 inch to the right side and then give 1 inches to the left side. Now, this is important because if you just go ahead to stitch this down without taking this measurement, it's either your skirt appears bigger than it should be, might be oversized, okay, or it will be smaller than what it should be. Okay, so it's important you do that. You repeat the same thing at the knee area. Okay, take the measurement you have there and then do what you should do. Then connect the points you've made together. So I'm just using my free hand to connect them together. Then I'm going to extend it to the full length. Now, I'm not going to follow the measurement I have from my knee to the full length. No, you can see how I'm taking this inwards. So I'm curving this inwards just like I did for my zipper allowance area, because that is the right way to do this. If you go in, if you decide to just follow it straight down, you're going to lose the flay at that point. So you need to just take it inwards from that end inwards, just the same way you made the mark while cutting out the flay. It is the same way you're going to take this, and after which you just go ahead and stitch it down. So this is what I have after I finish stitching it down. This is the skirt. Okay, this is what it looks like after I finished. So you can see how this looks. We have like a lot of drama going on at the down. That is the effect of the 6 pieces. Okay, so I've gone ahead to cut out this piece for my band. I'm not using a stay on this because I don't have one at the moment. But if you want to put one for yours, you can go ahead and do that. So I'll just go ahead and fix this from the inside, flip it to the outside, and then fix my zipper. So this is the final look of the skirt after I finished. You can see the flay of the skirt and you can see how this looks like. Okay, you can see like the curves it's giving. Now on the waist you can see the band. I just used 1.5 inches like I said. So this is the back piece of the skirt. You can see how nice this turned out. Okay, so let me know in the comment section if you found this video helpful, and if you're here at the end of this video, you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.